Apparently I'm live. I'm just stalling a little bit whilst it definitely triple checks that I'm live. Hello and welcome to LOP Radio Aftershock, aka Wrestling Headlines, a pay-per-view review for WWE. The Tired Brit is here once again, absolutely knackered at 2:15 in the morning to bring you your Hell in the Cell review. Just finished about 10 minutes ago, so I've been rushing about getting everything ready for this immediate review. Immediate opinions. I've written down a bunch of notes throughout the show so I can at least help myself remember what on earth my feelings are. And jumping straight into it, first of all, you can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp. They're my normal intro points, just, not necessarily in the correct order. So, I do the Monday Night Raw reviews, and I also do Aftershock here on For Wrestling Headlines, covering the pay-per-views as soon as they happen, be it AEW or WWE, or now and then New Japan. If you did watch the G1 Climax, the Kingdom of Honor boys covered that on Tuesday, so go listen to that. But Hell in the Cell has literally just finished, and we've got new champions all over the place. We got 3 Hell in the Cell matches, and it certainly was a unique show where 5 matches advertised, 1 booked on the show. My fear was more, so I'm perfectly fine with 1. Not going to complain too much, but Hell in a Cell 2020 was live from the Thunderdome. The big important question, did WWE break the streak of god-awful Hell in a Cell endings? It was 3 in a row going in. 2019, possibly the worst with The Fiend, my ultimate breaking point. I'd only just taken over as Aftershock host. I was still about 10 months away from going to video. And I'm so happy that I was just in audio form back then. So yeah, I had a bit of a breakdown last year after just taking this over, kind of shifting things about because I realised the amount of investment it would be, and had a bit of a breakdown. This year, none of that. I just thought the final match, I don't know, it didn't hit for me. And then with the ending, my immediate thought was, I just want this feud to be dead. I was done with it going into this pay-per-view. This entire build, I'm just ready for it to end, for both men to move on. And that's really the biggest thing for me. If both men move on, then yeah, I'm cool with that. That's all right, but just don't, continue. For the love of God. But it was the main event, Hell in a Cell, for the WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. I'll start with that, then I'll go go down the card in reverse order. Maybe doing the Hell in a Cell matches first, then talk about the other ones afterwards. So you can tune out if you want after talk about the Hell in a Cell matches, which is really why everybody tuned into this pay-per-view. It was an interesting choice for main event, purely because it was them picking the... I'm not entirely sure saving their slowest Hell in a Cell match for last was the wisest idea. Yes, it had big moments in there, like Drew McIntyre falling off the cell, and he had the win in the end. But it was quite possibly the slowest of the Hell in a Cell matches. Personally, in terms of... Because, again, you got them climbing the cell in terms of the action amplifying. Technically, the spots were bigger. Technically, because climbing on top of the cell, falling off the side of the cell, technically that is your biggest spot that you can do inside that structure. And to do that in your final match makes the most sense because you can't really go any higher than that. That said, the pace of the match was pretty slow in between those beats, and it's an odd one. It makes Randy Orton's win feel bigger as well, because that's the other part of it. Randy Orton defeated Drew McIntyre in the end after the big Scott fell off the side of the cell. Randy Orton was there to kind of stalking him about. Drew McIntyre had a bit of a fight back, nailed a Claymore, but the RKO lad fell up to the outside, and then rolling him back in, then using all his last remaining energy just to call for a Claymore, he then got countered into an RKO, and that was it, because falling off the steel structure on the side, that was too much for Drew McIntyre. Which meaning 1 RKO, and he wasn't fighting back from that. So it's one of those where it makes sense that he lost. Like, yes, his finisher didn't end Randy Orton, but he rolled to the outside. So if he'd scored the 3, would he have done it? But landing the RKO, yeah, that's that. That said, it's a win which worries me a bit, purely because of what comes next. And you've given The Miz the briefcase, who's on Monday Night Raw. Interesting. Does he cash in on Orton? Do we get Drew McIntyre Orton again? That's my biggest fear, because I was done with this feud after Clash of Champions. It was the perfect ending, and then it's continued. And it felt like, but we've got to go to Hell in a Cell. We've got to go to that extra beat. And if the plan was always for Randy Orton to beat Drew McIntyre in the end, for me that needed to happen at Clash of Champions because it was 1 month too much. I was done with the feud, and now Randy Orton's champion, and I'm done with the feud. I don't know if that's like worst case scenario for them, where they've given this idea to kind of give one final boost on one final fifth match, which again is my other WWE problem. They had their first match together for Mike was at SummerSlam. We're now 2 months later, and I'm complaining about it being their fifth match we're about to build to. Is there an issue there? It's just in terms of maybe need to mix it up a bit. Getting the same match over and over to that point. Again, Clash of Champions for me, that had been 3, and I was perfectly fine with that. I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, nice little trilogy. Then Hell in a Cell, thought was one step a bit further. I just assumed Drew McIntyre would win. But now Randy Orton's won, I'm a little bit worried what happens next. I'm all for nothing against a Randy Orton championship run at this point. I'm perfectly fine with that. They were touting him getting very close to Triple H's record. Again, no issues with that. It's more of this specific feud. Orton versus McIntyre. It's been great up until a point, and after Clash of Champions, that was such a perfect feud ender. I just zoned out. I haven't cared a dolt. I don't know if that's a phrase. I haven't cared. I say jolt. I haven't cared a jolt. It's not a saying. I haven't cared at all. On Monday Night Raw, they've been doing their build as Randy Orton's been attacking the legends, as they've been doing that slow build to Hell in a Cell. I've just not cared. I've been done with the feud, and this feels like one last kind of setup for another match. But again, I am done with the feud, so why would I care about? I mean, it's a personal thing because it has been good, and I can see why people would still be invested. It's just that they hit such a perfect ending. That's like, well, why would I care now? It feels like the feud continued because that's the schedule rather than that's the story they were telling, which again is an issue you get to when you're booking it week to week or month to month if you're going like that. That's a wall you're going to constantly hit because you're not thinking further ahead, specifically in terms of stuff. So yeah. Anyway, I'm doing really well holding a sneeze. We'll see how many minutes I go. I've currently gone 7. We'll see. It's not stopped itching. It's not happening. I'll see if I can. Maybe addressing it will get rid of it. But there was another thing to mention as well, just in terms of little details about this match. Twitter was going the number one. You know, a match has grabbed an audience when the audience is on Twitter talking about Randy Orton's pants instead of getting invested in the match and cheering for what's happening. Randy Orton was wearing trousers for quite a fair amount of the first portion of the match. After he attempted a sneaky attack. So Sneaky Orton was dressed in his sneaky black hoodie and he tried to attack Drew on the outside. But the Scot was on alert and that led to a brawl. The champion seized control and as he shut the cage door with Orton down in the ring, I guess somewhat echoing that rather odd ending to Raw this past week. But this time we get to see it. We had that fact that Orton's sneak attack didn't work because he was wearing the black trousers for such a long time. Like as he was getting beaten up all along ringside, he was wearing. And everybody's just like, I can see his ring gear under his trousers or his pants because it's an American audience. I see his ring gear under his pants. He's going to take the pants off. He's taking the pants off, Andy. And he eventually took the pants off. But it wasn't like Tai Chi. It wasn't like my opponent's down, oh, way, like Angel Garza, just ripping them off. No, it wasn't like that. It's, I'm Randy Orton, you're down. I'm going to sit down and slowly take them off. Can't think of any less flashy. He'd have to do that anyway. That type of thing. You'd have to attack him, sit down, take his trousers off, which he did here. So you'd have to do. Yeah, that must have been part of his plan if he thought that far ahead. Anyway, the match was more even after that, but it was quite slow. Randy Orton in control, like throwing Drew McIntyre left and right, completely destroying him, but it was just a bit slow, and. The match built because it was building to that big moment where it builds enough to them then climbing the cell, then Drew McIntyre falling off the cell, the Randy Orton stalking him as he's like refusing to die, crawling down the side of the page. Oh, I could be scratching my nose on the YouTube feed. It's still there. My God. Hopefully my nose just runs and I don't don't sneeze. But yeah, it was a slow building match, building to a massive moment, and then it's kind of the aftermath of that massive moment, and that kind of pretty quickly leads to the end. I'd say after a slow crawl all the way along the side of Hell in a Cell, then back into the ring. Eventually, then you had your quick ending of like hitting finishers and then counters and things. But yeah, that's why I'm not entirely sure what to think. It was, for me, my least favourite of the 3 cell matches of the night. You ended with your slowest one. It had the big spot on them falling off the cell. And I kind of liked how with Drew. I liked Randy Orton stalking Drew McIntyre back into the ring, and Drew's fight back, and then Randy ultimately winning. Because I would have liked Drew McIntyre's reign to continue. It's not particularly a massive reason to definitely take it off of him, unless you've 100% got the next beat ready. As in, like, his reign's been good, but we've got this planned thing we're going to. So they're going to shift to that, and now start building to it. If that's the case, then yeah, we'll see it play out on more. If it's to keep the feud going, please no. I've seen it enough. Anyway, that's kind of what I think about that match. It wasn't awful. It was still a good match. It was just so slow for the main event. And I understand why it's the main event. Again, in the escalation of offense that you saw throughout the night, like a very story-based vicious affair to the, I guess, hotly contested, also vicious. The word I use was brutal. From vicious to brutal to ultimate danger. I guess it's how I'd word it. But also it makes Randy Orton's title win feel more important because it was the main event. Because Sasha Banks winning was also big and important, but Randy Orton's win, because Sasha's win against Bayley was another like really big storyline feud match, and it felt big anyway, just in terms of the shift, just because of Bayley's massive reign. But if Randy Orton had won in that slot, it would have not felt anywhere near as important. As in, Randy Orton needed the main event win more than Sasha did, if that makes any sense. As in, Sasha Banks winning here or in the main event would have been big either way. It would have been even bigger in the main event, which would have been awesome. But Randy Orton's would have been so significantly lower, I feel, if it was the penultimate Hell in a Cell. Because it was that slower affair, and he put that in the middle rather than the hot contested, for me, match of the night. Then you're capping off Sasha Banks' amazing trilogy. I'm drifting over to that one because that's the one I want to talk about. That's the match I generally did enjoy. But yeah, it was quite a slow main event match. And I'm going to pray that the opening match was also a slower pace, but I really enjoyed that. Whilst this match here had big spots, but don't really care. No, I'm not exactly jumping for joy at the result, mostly because I fear it will keep this feud going. And I'm so done with it. I'm just tuning it out. And the fact that it might still continue. And it like time-wise, it might not even been going that long. Say if the SummerSlam's in August, that's August, September, November. August, September, October, November. I know my months. Damn it, coronavirus. All over the place. But yeah, so it's been going 3 months now. And for WWE, it's not rare for them to hit another, or at least the next pay-per-view, and definitely end it there. But it's just because of Payback, really. It's because that added one extra match to the schedule, and that's what's kind of made it too much for me. Because like the beats I'm talking about from like pay-per-views and defenses and things, if you don't have Payback, you don't have that immediate pay-per-view 1 week after SummerSlam, then you've had one less defense, and it just feels... I'd probably be at the point that we're at now at the next pay-per-view, just because you haven't had that additional match, which really helps. And in WWE style, you don't often see these people interact with other people on the show that aren't involved in their feud, and that really hurts it. Personally, it means you're seeing them together so often that there's a high likelihood you get burned out on it. Just because there's no variety within there. I mean, there's variety of ideas every single week. They come up with random stuff. Like he's attacking legends. That's the thing. But every week it's Randy Orton does something, Drew McIntyre comes out angry. Drew McIntyre says a taunty thing, Randy Orton comes out angry. It's it gets to a point where you're having to up yourselves every single time for why is this feud continuing, and I guess, yeah, I'm going around in circles a bit. Yeah, it's case in point. big spots that are relatively enjoyable. Don't really mind the story they told, but as a main event, it was slow and it was. But it does make Randy Orton's win feel important, and he do technically elevate the offense with every match that came. So yeah. Anyway, let's go from ultimate danger down to brutal. My God. Bayley versus Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks completing her Hell in a Cell trilogy against the Four Horsewomen. Her first match against Charlotte was like a massive moment because it was a main event match, one of the first with the women main eventing, and there's such an aura around the match. And her match from last year against Becky Lynch. A match which sometimes it gets a little bit overlooked purely because The Fiend versus Seth Rollins just, when I say stole the show, it stole all of the attention with how horrifically bad it was, and like an all-time low bad. And but Becky Lynch with Sasha Banks was amazing. Highly recommend you go back and watch it. And then now here she caps off the trilogy against Bayley, and again it's amazing. It's a really good match. Like such a fantastic, for me in terms of like trilogies of matches you have to see. Yeah, Sasha Banks' 3 matches against the Horsewomen in Hell in a Cell. Yeah, that's a hell of a trilogy. Go watch them. And this one capped it off. So creativity off the charts. And it was again, all 3 of Sasha Banks' Hell in a Cell matches have been so damn creative, and this was no different. Bringing the brutality with it as well, like really using the Hell in a Cell structure for the match. Like, I really enjoyed Roman Reigns Jey Uso, but if there's one complaint, did it have to take place inside Hell in a Cell? Really, no. Not really. There weren't any spots that couldn't have happened just in a standard match. Because they were aside from them like brawling around ringside, throwing him into the cage with Jey Uso at the start. Now, you got that fire from Jey Uso because you got to see that. But like all of the biggest spots of the core of the match, it's just an I Quit match. Like a really good I Quit match. But like it was like an I Quit match first. I Quit match first and Hell in a Cell second. Hell in a Cell was used so like for a bit at the start, and then it was just straight I Quit. And the spots looked brutal. It was a great match, but yeah, I'm talking about the wrong match. I'm actually talking about Bayley versus Sasha for the Smackers Women's Championship. And so I guess a nice little telling thing of Banks in all white, Bayley New Zealand All Black, and a little telling thing as well. The cell wasn't down before the match started, or before the participant announcement. So I'm just waiting for a spot, and the spot was the setup for the chair, which would arrive later, and. Sasha Banks drop kicked the chair, sending that customised chair flying out, and my immediate response of, oh well, you'll just have to use another chair? Because there's a plethora of chairs under the ring, and like within such a short amount of time they're going under the ring searching for weapons, and lo and behold there's like a pile of chairs. Just pick a chair. She uses 2 chairs to put the ladder on later. So yeah. And both of them were like scavenging for weapons throughout this match, and Sasha Banks and both of them had the creativity. I think it was Sasha who wedged kendo sticks between the steel cage, between the cage. It's a cell, isn't it? I'm using the wrong term. Between the cell and the steps to make a little. I was going to say table type thing for them to crash into, but that was used to play off a spot where Bayley tripped onto them after a bit of a counter sequence. Trips Banks onto those sticks, and she was gripping her neck in pain, just playing that up later in terms of the attack. And the phrase I've written down so much for so many spots in this is brutal, in italics. It's brutal. I would say it. Like, Bayley on top until a brutal looking sunset flip into a powerbomb off the apron, sending the champion into the red steel. And Banks as well. It was Banks' turn for a brutal bump after Bayley was the one flipping Sasha back with a powerbomb, this time sending her foe crashing into a chair wedged in the corner. There was more than that. Everything looked brutal. Like even when Bayley just, it was after Sasha Banks had gone for a frog splash, and Bayley had found her trusty chair because he got the chair back. She had her trusty chair on her chest, so Sasha Banks went crashing onto that and is in pain. Then at ringside, Bayley just smashed her former friend's face just into the ringside mat. I was just like, bloody hell. Everything looks so brutal in this match. Yeah, Banks giving everything to it as well. Where Sasha Banks was meant to do like a she knocked out kind of spot where she hits the ring apron or the steel ring of the ring apron as they were selling it on commentary, and that's meant to like leave her just draped there as Bayley just whips her with kendo sticks. Like there were so many awesome creative spots. Another one where Sasha Banks pulls out a table, Bayley attacks her, Bayley goes round to pick up the table from one of the ends, and Sasha Banks ran up the table, delivered a meteora, driving Bayley's head into the steel cage, into the steel structure with the meteora. That was awesome. She hit so many meteoras, and possibly the best was like right at the end after they're doing their little offense around the ladder, and Banks fights back in after Bayley tried to dive onto the ladder prone Banks. Banks then charged in with the meteora. It just hit with so much force. Again, it was brutal. To be fair though, that wasn't the brutal bit in the sequence, because right after she hit her Bayley to Bayley, just kind of launching Bayley round onto the ladder. It's like, again, that looked brutal. It's just, there's so much behind this offense, and like the number of times I've written brutal, the number of times I've written oof, just ouch, just. Both of them. It wasn't, because quite often we credit, when in these matches we'll be crediting Sasha for just throwing it all to the wind, and in this occasion, it was both of them just gave that all in this match. It was such a great affair. Really went at it, and yeah, it was fantastic. Really, really top notch match. And easily my match of the night as well, just because of the creativity just evolved and grew, and it felt like the perfect third match in that Sasha Banks Hell in a Cell trilogy. Really, really good. And there's only one word to describe the ending, where Sasha Banks brutally stomped on the legs of the chair as Bayley had gone for a contrived wrap the steel chair round onto Sasha Banks' back to hit a belly to belly, and it was just too contrived. Sasha Banks reverses and right into the bank statement with said chair wrapped around Bayley's neck, and Banks starts brutally stomping on the legs of the chair, and Bayley just taps right the F out. It's just like, my God. So I'm just sat there like, what a match. What a match that was. Absolutely loved it. I guess my only complaint in the Sasha Banks Bayley feud is the word rushed. That is how I would describe it. The feud was just a bit... It's the issue of the WWE gimmick structure, where this is when you do Hell in a Cell, therefore that's when you have your match. Even though it's a kind of massive blow-off angle kind of thing, where this is the first match, and so it means Sasha Banks can't sell her injury. It's one thing I've got where the heel would do a vicious attack, and I guess one part of the vicious attack is to take out the babyface. Like, your hero is gone, but you never feel it because they're back in a week or two, because they've got to set up the pay-per-view feud. So it's always more of the vicious attack was more to sell the baddie turning, which always happens. It's a moment, and the baddie's and the person's now a baddie, or they're against each other. You've got your new kind of setup for it, and that was a moment creating that. But there's never any consequence to it. Like, they'll do the massive angle, the massive injury thing where you would think Sasha Banks would be out for quite a while with a serious injury. But no. Bayley does her big attack and Banks is back in a week or two. You don't feel the loss. There's no consequence to Bayley's actions in terms of Bayley does vicious attack, Banks is out for like a week, and then she's back again. It's not quite... It doesn't have the same oomph. If she's like properly out for a bit, you feel the loss of that person not being there because of the vicious attack. Then she comes back. Yeah, it's because this is when Hell in a Cell was, so they go to then. It's a WWE criticism for me, where they don't let things build and bubble just because you got the pay-per-view around the corner. Yeah, and it means they're going to be less invested in your match when it happens. And I can say the match was really, really good. It was the same criticism. Amazing match. I'm just not a massive fan of the creative. When I say massive fan of the creative, like, the beats they've been doing are fine. It's just they've done it so quickly that I've not been able to kind of get into it. You've not soaked me in. You've not, what you do to the cake when you glossed it. That's not the word. He not glossed the cake. Still not the right word. But, yeah. Fantastic match. Easily my match of the night. But I was more comparing it to like the build of Sasha Banks from her match with Charlotte Flair, her match with Becky Lynch, now her match with Bayley. That was more how I was looking at it rather than always big, hot, contested feud between Banks and Bayley. Both characters are amazing. I just would have liked to get into the feud a bit more for Bayley to like properly have her. Because if she attacks Sasha Banks, so Sasha can't attack her, so Bayley can be on top. I just want at least just a month or two with Bayley on top. As if she did it for a reason, can I not see that reason in play? Just have Bayley be that champion without... And then Banks comes back. But again, you have to do the attack earlier. And that means like building way in advance. Yeah. It's a personal criticism. From what I've seen, as I stutter all over the place, most people are fine with it. It's just like a personal thing. I don't like it when they rush storylines, and it's because they do it all the time. And now, I guess the other difference is now, like for the first time, there's actually a direct comparison, a direct competitor for me who is telling their story slower, like much slower, to a point where you see some people criticising not telling a story with AEW. Like they are, they just tell it in such a different way at such a slower pace that the sneeze is back. Oh, I've held it in. Oh, it returned after 20 minutes. It's still there. That's what I get with the... No. Or the drama. The drama of Manchester holding a sneeze. Oh, my word. It's not going away. Yeah, I think that's the best way to transition. To transition to the Hell in a Cell I Quit match. Because I show heart and determination to not sneeze. The Universal Championship. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. I Quit inside Hell in a Cell. Was it over gimmicks? Personally, no. Just because the match was so story-based that it worked for it. Again, if anything, it was so strongly an I Quit match that it didn't necessarily need to be in Hell in a Cell, but it did give a visual aura to it. So there's that. And WWE started hell off big with this one. Like, for me, the Roman Reigns arc has been a masterclass of a story of like establishing a top heel character with such a genuine feeling of dominance. And like, I wouldn't say this is the most unique, clever writing you'll ever see on television. When I've said WWE don't really present characters, they don't really write them that well in the past. What you're seeing in Roman Reigns, this is exactly what I mean. Because this isn't... It's technically... It's not a super unique story in a way. It's essentially the boss, the mafia boss in a way, asserting... Or his of the family, because that's like, mafia is like family. Of like the head of the man trying to assert his power as the head of the family. It's a story you could see in so many countless TV shows, for example. But because I've said in the past, WWE don't really know how to do like actual characters. That when you see one, it feels so many light years ahead. And this is my example. Roman Reigns he feels like an actual character with actually some depth to him. And he stands out so much for a reason. And what I've said before, they don't really know how to write characters or stories, really. When they do have one, again, it stands up so highly above everything else. It's like, yeah, this is what I've been saying the entire time. They do present something in that way, and it feels so much better. Because I think when my criticism has been like, yeah, it's not always bad, but it could be so much better. It's like, oh, you're just being grumpy. It's like, this is what I mean. when it can be better, and it is better, you can see what I've been trying to say. Or like television you'll see better stories told so many different places, and for me this is finally one on par with a story. Again, it's not mind-blowing, it's not the craziest thing in the world, it's not, oh my god, this is absolutely an incredible story that I will never see anywhere else, but it's been told really well. Or at least well, it's been told well. The character arc is strong, he's got depth to it. The matches themselves, the way that they play out, it really... The matches are used to further the character, to establish the character of the whole family at the moment as well. Like, yeah, that's what good TV shows do. And that's kind of what my thing has been the entire time. WWE have been pretty bad at establishing characters and having arcs and building, whilst this finally feels like they're doing that. And it doesn't even have to be incredibly... It doesn't have to be incredible. I think that's a better way to put it. It just has to be done competently, and that's what this is. And it will feel light years ahead because of the rest of the show is on a lower par in a way. It feels like a lot of its era, to be fair. And when I say of its era, a lot of WWE's tropes were born in the Attitude Era. They've not shaken them off. Or they kind of like during the Ruthless Aggression era kind of become like staples, and they've really just not shifted from them. But television has changed. And with the TV shows, there's a lot of shows with... I was going to say they're slower with a lot of depth rather than comic book quick. There are still the shows that exist, like of the opposite of what I was just talking about, but I guess the slower pace, the kind of more... The more thought out single story is a lot more common rather than the quick comic book week to week stuff. Still does exist, but I'm going on a massive tangent. My point is the TV landscape has shifted, but WWE style of production is still in the early noughties. And for me, the Roman Reigns thing feels like finally a shift to a more modern day way of storytelling. It's the way that we see more often in other places and other mediums. Therefore, it's a bit more representative of the modern day. And if Roman Reigns is as heavy in the creative as the word is, then that might be a massive part for it. As in him saying, I'm only coming back under these conditions. And the story is fantastic. So whatever they're doing with it, just all massive thumbs up. Anyway, so this was for the Universal Championship. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. And it was a unique match, all about the cementing of Roman Reigns. After Reigns was unable to make Jey call him the Tribal Chief last month at Clash of Champions, this time, would he be able to make his cousin submit? And the answer was not really, no. Reigns asserted control in the early going, but Jey's fire was full of fuel, burning all over ringside, driving Roman into the cage walls over and over. And as I said, that was there in the initial stages, then it went into a full I quit match. Back inside the ring, Jey was calling the go for the corner hip attack. I felt my Britishness, just polite Britishness, Uso. Uso crazy. He goes for the hip attack, only to be speared right in the middle of the ring, which was followed by an awesome speech from Roman. And this was my favourite part of... Oh my word, my moustache hair curled upwards into my nose. But yeah. Again, a very British reaction there. But yes, Roman was talking trash to Jey the entire match. And it added so much... It made me realise that this is less a wrestling match and more of it on television. We're seeing a character being built. And this was another character piece, just like the last pay-per-view was. And again, on my WWE television, I'm all for variety. I got my awesome match of the night contender in Bayley versus Sasha Banks later. I got my strong, just solid character piece here at the start. Just telling Jey, I didn't think just one spear would do it, but in about 10 minutes, you'll wish it would have. Don't make me the villain, just give up, type of thing. And yeah. And even when Jey Uso fought back and he was with just... no hesitation at all, jumping with two high-flying splashes. And Roman Reigns was down. When asked if he quits, Roman Reigns is the head of the table never quits. Jey Uso got a strap and started whipping Roman Reigns' back. And after the spear flew in once again, and Roman Reigns got the strap tied wrist to wrist. He's I'm the one that does the whipping around here, and just goes crazy on Jey Uso. And yeah, and I really like that. Jey Uso was fighting back until Roman Reigns did something. He was escalating the amount of viciousness he was hitting his moves with before he went to the guillotines and the drive-by dropkicks. The guillotine put over with him choking out Braun Strowman on SmackDown. Here it's oh my god, he choked out a massive dude in Braun Strowman with that guillotine, but that doesn't matter here. He's got to get Jey to say, I quit, and he's not going to do it. It's an outright refusal. And really liked at the start how they'd essentially, with Roman Reigns saying the head of the table never gives up. It's he's going to be just as unmoving as Jey Uso is going to be, and like, what is it going to take in the end? And it would get a team to try and joke out Jey. After that doesn't happen, he's just like shaking his head, just like, come on, please, just stop. I don't want to do this next thing, but you're making me do it. It's like, as a character, I love that. The first drive-by dropkick was hit, and it was like, oh, it's just the first drive-by dropkick of Roman where it generally adds so much to a story of a Reigns match. Beforehand, it just felt like one of the moves he does, and it's now time for that move. It's his signature move. He's doing the signature drive-by dropkick, and I feel like the best oomph it got from him has been like in multi-man matches, where suddenly he does that big, like in Shield matches especially, where he just run in with that diving dropkick, and it got such a reaction because of the momentum of the match. But in solo matches, it would sometimes just feel like one of his moves in a way. But yeah, this led so directly into the story, and after hitting that, he gave like one final plead, like before wedging the steel steps under the bottom rope and Jay's head between them and the ring post. And Reigns told him that before he did it, it's like, you'll be all right. This is such a subtle thing that I didn't see anyone mention it on Twitter. I assumed a lot of people just missed it because he just placed the steel steps there, looked at Jay, then went. But when he looked at him, he said, you'll be all right, and then went. It's like, oh, another awesome character moment. He still loves his family. It's just, by not acknowledging me as the tribal chief, you are making me do this. And that is a very, again, you see it in the mob films, but the mafia, like the head honcho mentality. Hello in the chat. The head honcho kind of mentality. Go for that. And yeah, that was an amazing drive-by. Just viciously driving the steel steps right into Jey Uso's face, sending his head crashing into the ring post, and he's unresponsive. And the ref finally goes to call it. A great thing where the ref looks at Roman and just says something as he goes to check on Jey, and Roman's just like, why are you looking at me? Like, he's the one making me do this. Get him to quit. Why on earth are you looking at me? It's not my fault. So many great character moments. Again, for me, it's every little layer, because this entire match is a kind of continuation of the character establishing thing, and it's a continuation of that. So the way it kind of just builds and builds, and I saw this entire thing as building that. And checking the chat, I'll get to Tucker and Otis in a second. Just first off with the final Hell in a Cell match. Yeah, just the way that it built, and the referee with an amazing bump, just flying over the top rope, and did like a spin as well. So just kudos to that ref. Absolutely cleared that top rope. It looked amazing. Officials flocked into, after doing that, the commentators turned super serious, and the WWE Twitter account turned super serious with the oh my god faces. And that's a pet peeve of a company or conglomerate tweeting as if they're a person reacting to their own product. Pet peeve. I find that a bit like, it makes me grimace a bit. But the officials then flock to the ring, completely fail, and Roman Reigns regains control of the ring. There's a botchamania of Roman Reigns struggling to get the steel steps into the ring, but skip over that. With the steel steps finally in the ring, he goes to slam them right into Jay's face when Jimmy Uso, with the cage door open because the official's running in, he runs in and climbs on top of his brother to save the day. One last plead with his family to stop this. Like, whatever you're just telling him, like, whatever you're going through, Roman, like, I can help, we can help you get through this. And Roman Reigns broke down into tears. And as soon as he did that, I was like, if this is going where I think it's going, this is brilliant and I love it. As soon as he broke down into tears, it's just like, he's not crying because he's in agreement with Jimmy, and he's like, oh, what have I done? He's crying because he knows what he has to do next. Like, the level he has to go to, how deep he has to fall. And it's just choking out Jimmy with the guillotine right in front of Jay, and that's what gets Jay to shout, I quit, to save his brother. Just, yeah. As soon as I saw him crying, I was like, I hope to God this is the beat, because this is what I would do or praise a decent story for doing. And that's exactly what happened. Just choked him out. And it was a fantastic ending, the perfect ending, and the perfect beat afterwards as well. Roman Reigns is on the stage, the ramp, with his title, lifting it in the air, when The elders of the family, of the Noai family, officially present Reigns with his position at the head of the table, Afa and Sika acknowledging him as the tribal chief. I can't speak. As the tribal chief. It was just a perfect cap on the end, and then he poses at the top of the ramp with Afa and Sika. So yeah, that was a perfect note on the end, because Jimmy and Jay are staring up from the ring as well, as he is now the head of the family. It's like, yes, I really, really enjoyed this match. Fantastic character piece. Built it up really, really well. Yeah, all three Hell in a Cell matches were really good, and it's just that the final one, the main event, was just a bit slow for me, and I'm not super amped about what this means going next. But with the other two, yes, really enjoyed them. Not really any cons coming out of them. Yeah, huge round of applause. But I'll now quickly bash through the three matches that were not the Hell in a Cell matches. So first off, as it was requested, what do I think of Tucker turning on Otis? So this was in the singles match between The Miz and Otis, with Morrison and Tucker retrospectively in their partners' corners. Otis's Money in the Bank contract was on the line. Otis had his new theme now that he's solo, so they're building that. But he's still a comedy character, essentially. And at least Miz is calling him out on it, and this heel turn maybe chips away at that as well. I mean, they're on different brands, so you have to break the brand split thing immediately to get them together. just a little thing of, not thinking ahead. As in, maybe when they did the brand split, they didn't know they were going to do this, and now they're in a bit of a pickle. And Miz and Morrison in the match tried to use their antics, but Otis was too wily enough to take advantage when Morrison was sent out for attempting to run in at the big man with the Money in the Bank briefcase and hit him on the head. Otis rolled up Miz, but the Hollywood lad survived. Miz was with a simple evade, with Otis falling towards the ropes after, and Tucky then strikes him with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Otis is clobbered, and The Miz steals the win. A new Money in the Bank briefcase holder. For me, totally the right call. Gives Otis some character mountain to climb in the form of his former tag team partner. In terms of, character-wise, he's got to get over this mental hurdle. But also, Tucker's quite tall, so he's a genuine mountain of a character. And Miz, once again, has the contract, so no complaints about that. He is a guy who, yes, he may be currently solidly mid-card in his act with Morrison, but he is one of those modern-day guys, you see it in every generation, where there's a guy who can jump from mid-card to main event with a click of a finger. And he, just as he was feeling like really just fleshing out the mid-card with a decent act, he can just click his fingers and be trustworthy main event guy who feels like he belongs at the top, just like that. But the main event has been so solid that it's really weird to see him doing anything other than just getting destroyed, unless we see another Money in the Bank switch or something. Yeah, but we got our explanation after the ad break, which I guess is worth more criticism. Or analysis, I won't say criticism because I'm not down on it. After the quick ad break, we got a backstage interview. Miz and Morrison were raving about their success and about how The Miz is a top guy and he's been working all this time and he's awesome and everything. When Tucker comes in, why did he do it? Asks Scaler. And he pretty much just says, he gets none of the recognition after all the work put in. Otis gets all of the applause, and he's the one kind of forced to make Otis look like the star was. He gets nothing. He gets no character, and he just has to put up with all of that. And finally, he has enough. And Otis can't function without him. He can't tie his own shoelaces. And Tucker's just like, well, let's see. And that's when the lad came charging in, and we got ourselves a wee brawl. And out they go. And that's into that. I think he charges off Tucker. So it's the heel who did the dastardly evil thing, but when the fight actually arrives, he just charges off a bit. Until it's an officiated match, and he can't. That's normally how these things go. In the comments, do I think Otis will ever win the title? Ever's quite a long period of time. If you mean this, I guess, next calendar year, just to, limit it down a bit, no. Because this is, when he got given the Money in the Bank briefcase, it was immediately just a massive thing of, he's comedy character. Yes, he might be high on him, but it's going to need to take a bit of work to build him up. Then over the... But I was in on the idea of, well, if they take time to build him up, then maybe that'll be fine. By the time he catches it in, maybe it'll feel like a bigger deal. But they've not done any of that. He's just kind of stayed where he is, as in comedy mid-card. So, and I've genuinely at times forgotten he had the briefcase. It doesn't help that on busy weeks, SmackDown's been the show that I've dropped. So this past month, with the G1 Climax, I'll be covering that in column form for Wrestling Headlines. Last column went up last week. I missed a fair bit of SmackDown. I just kept forgetting that he's the Money in the Bank briefcase holder. I guess no super. I don't know. Well, it's more. It might be more on me. I was going to say no super slight on them because that might be more on me. But he doesn't feel like a top guy. He's felt like a mid card guy because of the way he's been presented. This feud might be them realising it. It's like, actually, let's give him a character hurdle to actually climb up because to get him out of this mid card kind of area and promote him up a bit to get him over those hurdles. And I feel like a feud with Tucker could be the right thing. Like, quite often when there's a tag team split, you're like, oh, really? Like, we've seen it with the women on Monday Night Raw, where they split up teams for, like, no apparent reason, only to put them back together again with different partners. Like, what is this? Like, clearly no plan. But with the Otis Tucker thing, I feel like, in terms of a character, Otis needs to grow. And this is the absolute best way for, like, the easiest, that's right there in front of them, way to do that. It's given him an absolutely massive hurdle. He can't lean on anybody else. He's lost Mandy, drafted to Raw. He's lost his tag team partner in Tucker. Now he's lost the Money in the Bank briefcase. He was on top of the world. Now he's lost everything. Now we watch him climb. So, right now, he's solidly mid-card. So I don't know. Like, his character now, no. Maybe mid-card title. Maybe. But if this Tucker feud goes all right and they use it with The Miz, especially with The Miz, to keep that kind of going and build him up. I can't remember. Was he drafted to Raw? I think Tucker went to Raw. So I don't think he's even on Raw. I think Otis the one on SmackDown. Again, just an ultimate realisation. Oh yeah, they're on different brands. So either you break your universe rules immediately of, oh, the brand split matter when we draft them to it. Yeah, shit, we've hit the storyline. I've just sworn. Monetization done. But yeah, it's like, oh no, we've drafted him to the wrong thing. We're going to have to switch him over. Just to say it's a trade for one down the line or something. That's what they normally do. Yeah, it's just... Or he shows up just because. Does the band split matter then? Either way, I feel like Otis needed some climbing to do, and this is giving him a hell of a mountain to climb. Again, losing the girl, losing the tag team partner, losing the Money in the Bank briefcase. That is a lot to climb, and hopefully as a character he grows. Hopefully, yeah. So yeah, it's boring as in 1 year, no, maybe in 2 after he's done his climb. Maybe. The issue is the issue is the kind of comedy area he's been in. He's not grown. And my answer was if he grows. But he hasn't grown. So, yeah. It's different with Big E, for example. Because Big E does such a good job as making that part of him. Compared to Otis, where his entire act feels like mid-card. Big E's like, no, I can do silly, but I can turn it on. And for me, I wouldn't get rid of the silly too much. Like, Booker T says that, but he's a man of his era. Really, what I do with Big E is have him be him. Because him is so infectious is what's gotten crowds behind him. And to strip that away to make him super serious... Compared to let him be him, then when the bell rings, he can be as serious as he wants. Like, yeah, I'm all down for that. Anyway, yeah, with Otis, just give him. He doesn't even have to become super serious, or like as in like totally serious. He just has to grow as a character, and because he hadn't done any of that since the Money Back briefcase, since he won everything, he's not grown at all. Finally, he gets to do that. Anyway, the other 2 matches to round this off. Elias faced Jeff Hardy after the awesome Reigns vs Uso match, and I, along with most of Twitter seemingly, continuing to rave about that opener. Like, I was just struggling to acknowledge the match. So, Elias Jeff Hardy was on. I clocked in that it was plenty of punch kick and ringside barricade action. Favourite part was when Hardy went to get a clap going in an empty arena, just doing the and WWE sound mixing is so good, it took me ages to realise the clapping sound file was indeed playing. It was like 10 seconds later, I was like, oh, it was playing the entire time. I just couldn't hear it amongst the mixing. So, yeah, that was my thing. Not a fan of the... I'm with Jey Uso, who... There was an interview went up on Wrestling Headlines today. Jey Uso talking about how he just doesn't really like the piped-in audio. I've said the same when WWE started doing it. It's a mix. With live sports, can't stand it. With the football or soccer that I watch here, I normally given two options of with the crowd noise or without it. I always pick without it. But in WWE, it's so overproduced as it is, and you see this with some like game shows on TV. It's so overproduced as it is that you don't even need a crowd there anymore. And this kind of teaches you that. Like with WWE, it's like this is like watching old SmackDown to the crowd noises. It's so overproduced, and so much of the actual crowd just isn't there, where they're just a visible thing, that you don't even need them. In terms of producing your show, it doesn't feel any different because you're piping in the noise anyway. And that's kind of where we are now. Like, some of the mixing is bad. For me, it's at its worst when it's used to be reactionary. Like when you're meant to have them go, ooh, at a spot, because it just doesn't... More times than not, it sticks out. Just when the ooh just wasn't at the right time. Or when I think they had... In this one, where it was Elias doing his wee song, and doing the walk with Elias thing, and the pressing of the button isn't in sync with Elias saying it. Whilst a live audience, would be in sync, because they're not pressing a button, they're following him. It's just little things like that. Reactionary buttons. Same with sports. That's my biggest thing. I'm fine with it as like background atmosphere noise, but when you're trying to react to things happening on the pitch, it always sounds crap. Because you cannot possibly react in time with it and the audio file play in time. It's always just out and it just feels not right. Anyway, thankfully they quickly went to a relatively quick DQ end. Hardy nailed the Whisper in the Wind before Elias rolled to the ring apron. Jeff attempted to follow up with a swanton onto said apron, but Elias rolled to the outside, quickly grabbed his guitar, but Hardy was right there to kick him in the stomach and, with no hesitation, crashed that guitar right over his back. And Elias's new song plays as he's flat on the ground and Jeff stomps out the remains of the guitar. Quite like that idea. Aside from the camera zooming in and out for every single stomp. Just don't need to do that. It's a WWE thing they've done for years. It's a production trope that snuck in this decade. And it's hilariously bad. I can't luckily for me, I'm looking down at my notes and writing. So I'm not just concentrating on that. But yeah, not a technique I like. Not at all. And I feel like there's no better match to end this show on. Just to end the review on. No bigger match to end it on than Bobby Lashley versus Slapjack. Oh, what a big match this is. So, teased on the pre-show, or the kickoff, that somebody on the Hurt Business would face somebody of Retribution. And I think Hurt Business got to decide both, was the idea. So, and as I didn't watch the kickoff, this was the first I was hearing about it. Just straight in there. Yeah, by the way, there's this extra match now between these two Hell in a Cell matches. Alright, and I guess gets me to... It's the thing that happens with Wrestle Kingdom quite often, where if you watch New Japan Wrestle Kingdom, they'll have their final 3-4 matches are all absolute bangers, amazing matches, which means back to back, how do you stop your crowd from getting tired? Well, the answer is you make the start of the matches a bit slower so they can calm down to then build back up again. My assumption is this is that. Bobby Lashley versus Slapjack is your... It feels like padding filler, but really it's your come down match. It's your... After the really hot Bayley versus Sasha Banks match, you then calm down a bit with Bobby Lashley Slapjack. Bobby... Oh, but did I just call him Bobby Splashley? I didn't mean to do that if I did. Oh, Bobby Splashley Slapback. Bobby Splashley Slapback, yeah. If I'm calling this match. But yeah, you do... Yeah, this is your calming down. This is your opening of a New Japan match. New Japan must get a match where you need to calm them down a bit before you build them back up. And yeah, so Big Bobby Lee versus the one in the silly mask. A padding of filler between our two final Hell in a Cell matches just to calm you down. Slapjack entering down the ramp felt a tad against the anti-WWE Anarchy character. just a bit against it. With their full graphics, music, theme made for them and everything. And on the entrance, it's got their unique name card. That's what I'm looking for. It's got the unique name card that comes up. And you're like, the whole production team is thoroughly behind these anti-WWE Anarchy characters. It's again it. Don't think about it. But in terms of Retribution, it doesn't really get any better. Like Elias vs Hardy before it, I hardly took anything in from this match because it was the in between the ones that we're really there for. A full-on calm down, just waiting for the main event as Bobby tosses and launches around a poor Australian. Eventually locking in the Hurt Lock, and that's now 2 for 2 tap outs for Retribution against Lashers in 1 week. The rest of Retribution immediately attack. Ali calls for T-Bar and Mace to put out Lashley's lights. Eventually the rest of the Hurt Business made their save. Retribution not exactly having any run of success in terms of in-ring or booking or anything. I massively applauded Mustafa Ali's speech on Monday Night Raw. We got so much behind his character and motivation, and he delivered it so well that I was like, the booking at the start of the show, but this promo here, fantastic. Yes, you give me. There's a chance I could get into this because of that promo, but then you go back to the ring again tonight, and it's crap again. You send out Slapjack, and he obviously gets destroyed by Lashley. Your group has lost. It's had you've had 3 matches. 1 in DQ, and 2 were losses. That's not good. That's an awful debut run. Why would anyone be scared of you? You don't win. Ultimately useless. It feels like it's building up to a Survivor Series match, Hurt Business versus Retribution, and they'll be on commentary at least, hyping it up as this massive deal. But Retribution, it wouldn't hurt if they won one on the road. Again, give Mia Yim something to do. That would be nice. Now you're seeing people coming up with, well, who will be the Hurt Business's female member? Purely because Mia Yim's doing nothing. She's there, but there's no female member of any group for her to face. So she's just there before. Like Monday Night Raw, they all came out, did their thing. Then when the match started, Mia Yim just didn't exist. She just disappeared. Gone. Poof. No Mia Yim. Or whatever her name is. Is it Reckoning? One of them went. It was Reckoning and whatever Mercedes Martinez was called, but they dropped Mercedes Martinez. Now it's just Mia Yim. Just showing how strongly they definitely have this entire thing planned out. Now it's just Mia Yim. And I think it's Reckoning. But yeah, Retribution's just on every front. It's just a complete booking creative failure. And the rest of the thing that saves it in a way is the wrestlers involved are all really good. And with all kind of unique looks to them as well, which really, really might help them long term actually get over. But short term, in these opening months, every single mistake in the book has been made in terms of trying to get an act over. Every single one. And now it's on your pay-per-view debut in like a match, singles match with a group, just have them lose, yeah. Send out your weakest member and lose. Yeah. And of course, when the Hurt Business came down, that means that the attack on Lashley didn't even work out either, and they just kind of back off. My assumption was they wanted the stare down so that he can build up to Survivor Series, but still, that means Retribution lost twice in one night. just really putting them over. I was hit my camera. Really, really putting them over. That's sarcasm. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Got through it in an hour. It was a toy just shy of 3 hours. So the main event starting at 2:30. Again, I'm still used to that world, like the Hell in a Cell I covered last year. I'm used to that world. 2.5 hours in, I'm like, oh, halfway. Here we go. But now that's when the main event starts. So much easier to watch, so much better. I hope after COVID, no matter how long it is, assumably, might even be this time next year, building to Christmas, maybe. Again, I'm not a scientist, but that's maybe what it's looking like. And for us to be like in a position where we're going back to shows and things, personally, keep the 3 hours. That's the point I'm trying to get to. Keep the 3 hours. The show doesn't need to be 4, especially with the kick-off. The crowd gets there for. The people want to get there 4 hours can, but don't have it at 4 and people who want the 5th hour can. That's just a bit much. But the 3 hours is nice and tight. I'm fine with it. Even if it's 2.5, I'm fine with. With it no longer being on pay-per-view, with me paying $10 a month, I am fine if your pay-per-view is a bit shorter. It doesn't have to be 3 hours. The cable network, this is how long the thing is, it isn't a thing anymore, really. I mean, aside from the fact that it is on pay-per-view, but if we're shifting more and more the focus onto the internet, yeah, I'm fine with it being shorter. 2.5 hours is perfectly fine. A 5-card show. NXT TakeOver me. I'm fine with that. No complaints. Anyway, that's the end of the show. If anyone wants to hit me up on Twitter at the damn Implicat, they can say so. I'm going the F to bed. I will be back here on the YouTube thing with a Raw review on Tuesday. Also, I think tomorrow night I'll be live on Twitch, 6 PM UK time to 8 PM UK time. Given that I'm up now, you can probably guess it'll be quite a relaxed stream. I think I'm just planning to make enemies dance in Ratchet and Clank. So, yeah, super chill. Anyway, yes, it's there. The implications with an extra S. If you want to follow me there. I'll plug it out on Twitter if anyone cares. I will be back on Tuesday for that. Also, the Hustle got out his column on the Hell in a Cell with his immediate review because he is Hustle. Bye-bye, Stickman. See you next time. And I will be... will I be tweeting anything live? No. I'll be enjoying UK time, where I'm an hour earlier right now, which means I can actually cut off this show with energy. I say energy, it's hot. It's 3:20. It's still not, it's still not ideal, but it's better than 4:30, 5:30. It's take what you can take. Anyway, I'll be back on Tuesday for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you for listening. What do you make of Hell in a Cell? Hit me up on Twitter, comment below, hit me up and on the Laws of Pain site, wrestling headline site. Eventually I'll get the name of the website I'm on. Correct. And with that, I say thank you for watching, thank you for listening, reviewing, 5-starring, thumbs-upping, belling, the YouTube bell thing, whatever else you do with podcast stuff, because I can never remember at 3:30 in the morning. With that, I say bid you adieu, adios. Oh, my voice squeaked like a teenager. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Oh, I'm going crazy. All right, adios.